Hello and welcome everyone to the Charity Charge Nonprofit Spotlight Series. My name is Matt, and on this show, we like to talk to some really incredible nonprofits that we come across and highlight their mission and also get to know the individuals that are behind the scenes powering their mission and just highlighting all the great work that they're doing. Today, I am joined by Kylie McGrain Zarnock, who is the founder of A Moment of Magic and just a really incredible nonprofit. Very excited to talk to you today, Kylie. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, before I get into the mission of your organization, could you just give us a little background on yourself and how you got into the nonprofit space and what set you on this path that you're on today?
Sure. So I think I'm like a lot of people in the nonprofit space where I didn't really start out looking to start a business. I really saw a mission before I saw an opportunity to create a business. For me personally, I had two loved ones that were hospitalized long term, and I saw the impact that hospitalization had both on them and the family unit as a whole. These people were my grandparents, and they were married for 65 years. They were what I consider the real life notebook story. And we spent a lot of time in the hospital. And I think when you are in the hospital space, you walk in, and even as a visitor, the lighting and the smells and the beeping and the sounds, it can make you really anxious. And as the visitor, I got to leave. So my grandparents were married for 65 years and they passed away within 2 weeks of each other. And I was looking for a way to kind of process that grief. And when I was going through some of my favorite memories with them, I thought it was really ironic that they were, when they were hospitalized, we still found ways to find joy and find community despite the obstacles that they were going through. So I wanted to try to replicate that and create positive memories for others when they were hospitalized. And I thought, who better to do that for than kids? So I got a princess dress. I went to a children's hospital, and the rest is kind of history.
That's amazing. What a personal story, and just really incredible what you've done. I understand that this kind of idea was birthed in a dorm room, and here we are, almost 10 years later. You're running a fantastic nonprofit that's several $100,000 in annual revenue, many years under your belt. You've got chapters now. It's really incredible, and it really does start with a maybe kind of an unplanned, spark of an idea from a personal experience like yours. And the way you described it, the real life notebook story. I mean, it doesn't get more touching than that. It's so wonderful. And what a great way to honor their memory by continuing to spread joy in hospitals, et cetera. Now, I wanted to ask you. We talk a lot about the mission side of organizations and how there's that. There's also the back office administrative side, and the two, ideally are in balance and serving one another, but they don't always. What was it like, starting a nonprofit and growing it to where it is today? From that, administrative perspective, gathering the resources you needed, starting, getting your 501(c)(3) status, et cetera. What was that like, and what did you kind of learn from that experience?
So when we first started the organization, I was a college sophomore. That might be a pretty unique experience for a lot of people. But when we started the organization, the mission was really simple. It was to find ways to spark joy and bring connection to children that were hospitalized. And I spent a lot of time on my college campus dressed like a princess. And I went to a very small school. It was about 1,500 undergrad. So I was going from class to class, bringing my princess costume or, talking about what I was doing in my assignments. And my professors really took notice of what I was doing and asked, how can we help? So they really saw the potential of starting a business or treating it like an organization before I really did. I always saw it as mission and project and purpose first. And they saw the potential to really set the foundation that I needed. And so I was really lucky. My now husband said to me, let me connect you with some of my professors that I think could be good mentors for you. And they sat down with me. They helped me write a business plan. They helped connect me to resources that helped file the nonprofit paperwork status, that helped file our taxes, that helped do all of those things. So I was really lucky that people wanted to help because they believed in the power of the mission.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and really a unique experience. I mean, and not a lot of nonprofits start when the founder is still in college, and no, that's a testament to the financial institution that you went to. That they recognized that there was some good happening there, and that you had that guidance that you needed. That's very wonderful. And now, so a moment of magic. Obviously it had a pretty clear mission at its infancy. Now we're 10 years later. How has that mission changed or grown or expanded, maybe in some ways that you didn't expect?
So when we first started, it was really simple. We used princesses and superheroes in hospital settings as a vehicle to spark joy for children. And that's still a big crux of our mission. But we also noticed that for so many of the kids that we were interacting with, this gave them the opportunity to understand what they were going through and a space to communicate it. And the more we were talking to medical professionals, it made sense because that's how kids learn and interact with the world. So we wanted to take the crux of what we were doing and elevate it. So we still have those programs. We call them Magic Maker programs, which are incredible and incredibly powerful. But then we also created another program called Express Create Heal that we developed with a medical advisory committee. And we use play based programming to teach children going through pediatric cancer, whether they are in the fight themselves or their sibling is going through treatment. And we use play based programming to teach them about their mental health and give them tools for resilience and coping. So it's just the basis of that mission keeps expanding and elevating. And I think that's been really powerful as well.
That's incredible. Yeah, to see such growth there, and really, partnering with mission aligned organizations to further your mission. That's what it's all about. Um, Now I know that we've talked a lot about a lot of positives in your experience. Have there ever been any challenges that you faced or had to make pivots? First thing that comes to mind is about 5 years ago during the pandemic. I'm sure there was something that came up, and yeah, what hardships has your organization faced, and how did you handle those as a leader?
So, COVID was a really interesting time for us because the one thing I haven't mentioned is our entire volunteer base are college students. So, for us, our entire business model was disrupted because college students were no longer on campus and we can no longer get into the hospital space. And as I'm sure you know, trying to ask for donations in the middle of the pandemic was interesting, I guess will be the adjective that I choose to use. So we really had to figure out how to pivot. So we were able to adapt entirely to a virtual space. We moved all of our programming virtually. And because we had such great relationships with our hospitals, we were able to do that really quickly. And saying to our volunteers, do you want to continue volunteering from home? Can we send you your costumes? Can we send you materials? 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds who had their entire lives disrupted saying yes, that was pretty incredible. So I feel like one of our strengths really is in our community and how strongly people feel about that mission and how strongly aligned they feel to the mission. This was always something that I founded in my college dorm room, but it's ours. It's not just mine anymore. And I think that's really
Mhm.
cool. I think running a nonprofit has been really interesting because the revenue side of things, there's just never enough money to do all the good that you want to do. So constantly trying to figure out how to pivot, how to be welcoming of feedback is really important. Never being too precious about an event or a campaign, being willing to adjust, and always surrounding yourself with people that are experts in other areas. If you're the smartest person in the room, you are doing it wrong. So I try to
Right.
surround myself with people that are experts in a lot of diverse different areas.
Wonderful. No, that's it's a very sustainable way to think. Not striving for perfection necessarily or completion of a project, but your ever enduring mission, doing everything you can, surrounding yourself with resources, and like you said, people that are smarter than you and me in the room to further that mission and keep it going, as opposed to hitting all of the targets that we set up for ourselves. Now that's very inspiring to hear, even in the face of the pandemic, that you were getting, the response that you got from your volunteers. It does seem like, I won't say it's an easy ask, but it does seem volunteering for your organization sounds very fun and fulfilling, and so it's that is wonderful. How do you engage your volunteers and keep them engaged and give them opportunities a to participate and B, just to stay in touch, maybe after they've volunteered.
So we create little leadership hubs around the country where we have chapters at different colleges and universities. And each of those colleges and universities are run by executive boards that are student led. And I think that gives all of our chapters a real ownership over the success of their local area. So they feel an ownership over their success, but at the same time, they know that they're a piece of the puzzle of the greater plan of a moment of magic. We're all working towards one big mission. So I think that's really key to what makes a moment of magic unique and one of our great successes for the organization.
That's wonderful. I appreciate that response there. Another thing we like to talk about, and we did touch on this briefly, how it was a little difficult or tricky rather to, ask for donations or kind of fundraise. Now that we're kind of on the other side of the pandemic, knock on wood, obviously fundraising needs to be kind of diverse, either from donors or grants, et cetera. In what ways has your organization diversified your call to action for financial support, either from donors or grant writers, et cetera?
We really took a hard look at our revenue streams after COVID. So we really looked at corporate social responsibility. There was a really big opportunity for us there. And we invested a lot of time in creating unique opportunities for businesses to get involved, to make donations to the organization and to support us, but also for their employees to get involved and feel like there was an ownership in who they were supporting and they knew where that impact was going. So we developed a really great corporate social responsibility initiative that we call bravery bag packing. So companies make a donation and their employees are able to pack bags. Those bags stay in local communities and are donated to local children's hospitals in their areas. So that was really great. We have some grant writing that we do. We do some actual generated revenue. We created some training platforms that we have, which has been great. But the crux of who we are and what we do has always been grassroots. So those general, those small donations. And I think the key to that has been, stewarding donations, making people feel appreciated, but also not being afraid to ask. The worst people can say is no. So making sure that you're putting yourself out there and telling your story and saying why that donation is impactful to your mission.
Wonderful. Yeah, it really is important when approaching donors, et cetera, to obviously have your impact numbers available, but also to storytell. And you are a very good storyteller. I was able to watch a little bit of your TEDx talk, and wanted to ask you. One of the things that you brought up was how a single moment can change your life. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I know that it's in the presentation, but that was kind of a moving part of that, and wanted to hear a little more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very lucky in this line of work to have been let into some very intimate spaces with our families. Every time we walk into a hospital room, that is what I consider a privilege. For so many of our families, that is a really hard experience. And we're strangers and we're being let into their hospital room and their space and their family time. And you walk in there a stranger and you walk out a part of their community. And all it takes is a few minutes. It takes listening to them, hearing their story, holding their hand, sharing a laugh, and it just takes presence. So for me, I think back to the times where we showed up for a little girl on her sixth birthday. It was her first birthday not in the hospital. And now, almost 10 years later, she's in high school and we still are regularly in touch with this family. So there have been so many great moments like that along the way. There have been really high highs. There have been difficult paths that we've walked through with families, and that's the reality of childhood illness and childhood cancer. But I think for me, the lesson has been a moment is 90 seconds. That's what they estimate that measurement to be. And if you 90 seconds to make a decision, that might be the decision that changes your life. Take those 90 seconds and make the leap because you never know what might be waiting on the other side of it.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Goosebumps over here. No, that is fantastic. I really do appreciate that importance of those it's like a not critical moments in that you only get one chance, but it could really all happen from within the span of 90 seconds from a first impression, sharing a laugh like you said, anything that, transcends cultural or language barriers, just a human interaction. That's very wonderful. Well, yeah. So we've talked a little bit about how I won't say accidentally, but just not on purpose, got into this space. Now here you are, a nonprofit leader. If you had a megaphone to, address other nonprofit leaders, many of which are listeners, what might you say to a nonprofit leader who is either, starting their own nonprofit or entering into a leadership position at an already established nonprofit?
That's a great question. I think so much of what I come back to is the power of community. We would not have had the success we've had without our community. So, establishing the trust that we have, making our volunteers feel valued and heard and like they're bought into the process, I think is really key and really critical. At the end of the day, being the leader, you have to make decisions. So, trusting your gut, but always letting the mission be the guide. That's our North Star and that's our guiding light. Looking at that mission, my office, I have pictures of the kids literally everywhere. You can't look in any direction without seeing the kids. That's what I make my decisions based on, is why we started and why we keep going. You don't always know how things are going to happen, but you know why they're going to happen. Trust your gut, rely on your community, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Wonderful. That's very good advice. Much appreciated. Um, how can our listeners support your organization best?
So there are so many ways to get involved. If you are in a nonprofit organization, we love to collaborate. We collaborate with over 350 hospitals and nonprofit organizations. So please check out our website. If you are looking to support a nonprofit organization or want to learn more, please visit amomentofmagic.org.
Excellent. And we'll be sure to include that link to your all's website. Kylie, I really do appreciate your time today. You've given us some excellent insights, and it's very moving to hear the story of your journey to this nonprofit space and the work that you're doing. To our listeners, thank you again for dialing into to the Charity Charge show. As a reminder, Charity Charge, we are here for all nonprofits as a financial ally with free tools, tips, expense management solutions. If you are in need of any of those services, please do reach out to us. And Kylie, thank you again for your time today. It's been an absolute delight speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it.